What do you, Dylan Apple wants to know this. First time commentating Piper versus Hogan, what was it like? Now, just to
Yeah.
add some context, when you first start doing commentary in wrestling and being involved in wrestling, it's 1983.
Yeah.
And in 1984 is when all the craziness of rock and wrestling and Piper and Hogan started to really pop off.
Yeah.
And at the end of March in 85 is the very first WrestleMania. And there was no mistaking that they were the bigger, more mainstream outfit from
That's right.
merchandising, from television to toys to whatever, cartoons, whatever. Did you still consider that the A show, even when I'm sure you were proud to be a part of the program you grew up with, Jim Crockett Promotions, make no
Uh-huh.
mistake. But it being New York and Hulk Hogan and pop culture,
Mhm.
did that feel like the A show to you back then?
Mhm.
It did. Okay.
I'll hit you with this one, and I think this is somewhat answering his question. I thought it was very cool that I could call Hogan and Piper.
Yeah.
Okay. But it would have been much cooler for me to be able to call Hogan and Piper at Madison Square Garden back in the day. I don't I it's not, I'm not trying to diminish anything that we did or anything that Eric did, the efforts that he put into it, because it was, Jesus, it was wonderful, right? This time was wonderful.
Right.
But to me, Hogan and Piper in Madison Square Garden, MSG Network, uh, doing it for the WWE would have been much bigger for me.
Talk to me about when you call it here in 1996. At this point,
Okay.
you've been around the business for more than 13 years.
Mm,
It's probably just kind of old hat at
yeah,
this
it
point.
is.
It's just a job, whatever we want to call
Yeah, it is.
it. What were you thinking? Was this still a big deal to you, Piper Hogan in the main event, and you getting a
Yeah.
call?
Yeah, it was a big deal. Absolutely. It was a big deal for me to finally get to work with Roddy Piper,
Right.
who I knew was from even back in the day and watching wrestling, to me was one of the greatest talkers of all time, which he proved earlier in the show. I mean, he just made up shit.
Right.
But I also remember thinking that, and of course, I also remember thinking that Piper's interview at that time, and the way he approached his business, he was just trying to be over the top silly.
Yeah.
In other words, it wasn't that wasn't a serious interview, and I don't know. It just seemed like a little bit different to me. I guess it seemed like a man whose career was coming to an end, and he was making the best out of it,
Yes.
knowing that. And Piper was always a much better talker than he was a worker. We all knew that. But it just seemed, it just felt different with Piper. I mean, I would have loved to, Piper in his heyday.
Right.
Yeah, man. Which would have been WrestleMania 1, right? Piper
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Well, it was a
Piper,
tag match, but yes.
Piper and Orton, right? Against Hogan and Mr. T.
I think it was Piper and Orndorff with Orton in their corner. He had the
That's
cast
right.
on.